Can your dream life also be your business? This week on the Dean's List, we're digging into the future of sustainable farming with Lori Simpson of Hummingbird Rancho, an entrepreneur who transformed a 3-acre plot into a thriving ecosystem and a business. How did she do it? What does it really take to build a farm from the ground up? Can you create a life that's both fulfilling and financially sustainable? Lori's journey is packed with insights on balancing farm life, creativity, and entrepreneurship. Whether you're a business owner, a nature lover, or just looking for some inspiration, because we all need that, this episode is for you. Don't miss out. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode filled with more insights that spark some action. Hit play, discover what's possible when passion meets purpose. Welcome to the Dean's List, engaging conversations at the intersection of entrepreneurship, artistic expression, and holistic health. Experience wellness in full color, where fashion, beauty, and art blend with body, mind, and soul. Embark on a journey that dresses your aspirations in style, paints your life with beauty, and sculpts your well-being in every dimension. This is the Dean's List, where inspiration is always in session. Welcome to the Dean's List, where we explore the dynamic fusion of wellness, creativity, and entrepreneurial spirit. I'm your host, Allison Dean, and today we're stepping into the world of sustainable farming with Lori Simpson, the visionary behind Hummingbird Rancho. Lori's journey proves that with a little vision, sweat equity, and ambition, anyone can cultivate their own farmstead and build a thriving business. From growing nutrient-dense, pesticide-free produce, thank you, to embracing eco-conscious practices, Lori's story is a true testament to the power of turning passion into purpose. Join us as we explore how Lori is reshaping farming, nurturing both the land and the people it sustains. Hello, Lori.
Hello. Hey, Allison. How are you doing?
You know, happy to be talking about some farming because I feel like there's a lot of hot topics on that front.
Just in the last few weeks, actually, has got me all kinds of excited.
Okay, good. Well, then we're recording at the right time. So Before we dig into all the nitty gritty of it all, I think it's important for people to learn a little bit about just kind of your background, because I think it's really interesting, maybe a little bit of the contrast of kind of your life and then this big move that you made from city to a 3-acre farm. And so maybe some broad strokes on all that.
Okay. I have just recently turned 52 years old, and had my first grandbaby, but I have 4 adult children and have been married to my husband for this year. We will have our 29th wedding anniversary. That's like the longest I've done one thing consistently in my whole life. So, that's pretty exciting and, you know, kind of a proud thing for me. We've raised these 4 beautiful children, and now I'm stepping into grandmahood. So that's pretty exciting. As far as the farm goes, I stayed home with my kids for, I want to say around between 11 and 13 years. I kind of worked a little bit part-time, but I basically, once I started having children, I stayed home with them, and, we didn't have a lot of money, and we lived in the same tiny little house for like 22 years. And in the middle of COVID in 2020, the world just kind of turned upside down, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, I feel like, you know, we need to get back to what we did when I was staying home with the kids before I started working in corporate America. So, we started looking for a little bit of property, and this farm found me. Yeah.
Okay. Were you in the mind space during the time of COVID where you're like, I want us to have a farm?
It wasn't ever like I wasn't ever saying, oh, I think I'm going to go buy a farm right now. Never. It was never like that. In fact, our house was only 1,230 square feet, the house that I raised my children in for 22 years.
Wow.
And once they started back to school, that's when I got back into corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the house was so tiny, but the property was for the area that we were living in, and people that are familiar with Boise, it was in the north, kind of the west edge of the north end, right?
Uh-huh.
And property there isn't a lot of it, right? It's very small, and we had a quarter of an acre, which for that space, for that place, that area of town, it was actually kind of big.
Yeah.
So when I stayed home, we grew everything, right? We grew herbs. We grew, my husband was really into medicinal teas and all that kind of thing. And we, cooked everything from scratch because here's the deal. We were poor. I mean, if you think about it, for all intents and purposes, we didn't make a lot of money, right? And it was a big sacrifice to stay home with my children, but it was a big deal to me because I didn't want somebody else raising them, and I didn't have a college education at the time. And so it wasn't like I could work and make as much as it would cost to send 2 or, 4, but even 2 children to daycare. So I stayed home with them. And then again, we cooked everything from scratch, grew things in our garden, made things for them to play with. I mean, it was all that kind of thing, but it wasn't at the time that I was doing it because that's what I had to do to survive. Right.
Right.
That's what I had to do because we didn't have any money. Right. And that was it. And and the last thing I wanted to do, which this is no disrespect to anybody, but I didn't want to live off of the system in any way whatsoever. I wanted to be able to do everything myself without help. If I could at all prevent that, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
don't know
much.
if it was a prideful thing, but
no. Well, I
think
it's a resilient thing.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
To be able to do that, right? Especially because I think we've all been kind of conditioned in this environment to rely on as opposed to rely on ourselves.
Right.
So we've departed a lot from, I think, what man, woman was so many, I don't know, ages ago, whatever, right? Like there's so much that's just kind of like handed to us. And so, no, I mean, I applaud anybody that's doing that.
It's fascinating too, what you're talking about, because I think the pendulum has been swinging for a long time too.
Yeah.
And I'm even noticing it kind of swinging back, it's been swinging back since COVID, but at the time that I was doing all of this, and I was staying home with my kids and Brian was gone, he was working a lot because he had to work multiple jobs to serve, for us to survive that situation. And, it just, we were able to buy our little house, which still looking back on it, that house and this property, the universe was just really looking out for us.
Okay. So you said the 3-acre farm found you.
Yes.
And when it found you, or when you saw this piece of property, did those feelings of when you were growing your own food, when you were raising your kids, did that just come like flooding onto you? Or what was the feeling when you saw this place?
That's such a great question. It was funny because we had been looking and looking, because what happened during COVID is everyone ended up at my house, my tiny little house. And I was already working a remote job.
Right.
And Brian was going back to school at this time to get his nurse practitioner. My daughter, who had been going to college in Missouri, and her boyfriend came to visit. Well, she came to visit for spring break. This was in March, right? My other kids, 2 of them were still living there. They were both finishing high school. What else was happening? And then Marissa had just moved out. My oldest had just moved out. So, but them and their boyfriends, and remember lockdown, they're like, oh my God, nobody can come and go. It was just this literal craziness. Yeah. So my daughter from college ended up getting stuck back in Boise because they locked down the school, shut down the school in Missouri. And she wanted to be with her boyfriend. So her boyfriend was like, I was going to come here. So I was going to school.
Okay.
Brian was going to school. I was working remotely. My kids were trying to do school online at this point, right? All of this stuff is happening in a tiny little shoebox living room at the same time. So that is when I was like, honey, I think we need something bigger. I don't know this is not gonna, when the little kids' butts are little cute, tiny little butts, that like 11 little butts can fit on a couch, right? But when they're grown adults, it's like, it doesn't work.
True.
So, so that's when we decided, we're going to start looking for something bigger because we're going to be grandparents.
Yeah.
Okay. We looked and looked, couldn't find a thing. I was getting so frustrated. And by the way, this was before everything went crazy, right? So prices haven't gone up to crazy. Nothing crazy's happened. We've just been locked down. That's all that's happened at this point.
Okay.
I finally give up looking after like, I don't know, a month or so to, month and a half or so. I finally just give up looking because I either can't find anything or all of the people moving here from California and Oregon on all these places who think Boise's so grand they were scooping things up, paying cash like super quickly. So I was like, ugh. And I really thought I wanted to stay in the North End, right? I just wanted something a little bit bigger, like, again, on the edge of the North End where there were like half acre to acre properties sometimes.
Yeah.
I just wanted something a little bit bigger. I wanted to be able to grow stuff again. So in the middle of all this, couldn't find a thing. I'm watching Biggest Little Farm. We're binge watching all these things, these home, lifestyle programs. We subscribe to Masterclass, right? So there's all these things that are, and we're just like, oh my gosh, we have to grow our stuff again. We have to do it again. And I really wanted my kids to remember like where they came from, where they came from before crazy corporate America. So I gave up. The very next morning, I'm scrolling. Brian has left for work. It's literally like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And I'm laying in bed, trying to wake up and I'm scrolling, just scrolling. And this property pops up on my feed, which is weird because I had been searching and searching and didn't see anything like this.
Okay.
I woke right up. At this point, I'm awake. I turn on the light. I'm like, in fact, I put my phone down and go get my iPad because I want to see the pictures better. And I go, I don't know why. I don't know what, but this place, it was like, I just knew. I was like, this is my place. This is it. This is like, it's like magical. That's the best way I could describe it.
And that was just in photos.
I text my husband's best friend who's a realtor.
Oh.
It's 6. By this time, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, sorry, so early. When you wake up, there is a property that's having an open house today. So apparently it went on the market on Friday. This is a Sunday.
Okay.
So I'm like, get back to me as soon as you can. I'd really like to go see this open house, but I'd like you to go with me because Brian's working. Okay. So he's like, text me back. Sure. Of course. Okay. No problem at all. All right. So we're on our way. So then I pull a couple of my kids, and I'm like, who wants to go with me? Well, a couple of them were working and a couple of them were like, yeah, I'll go. Of course, the ones going are the family manager, the one that's like the real mom, not me. Right. This is so funny. So she's like, yep, I'm going to go with you. I'm like, okay. And then, so we go, we're on the way here and his friend calls me and says, are you here yet? And I said, no, we're almost there. Why? What's up? And he goes, oh my gosh, there's people everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, because it's magical. I'm not surprised. Brian is working. He's in the helicopter with a COVID patient. He can't answer his phone. He can't do anything. He's literally in this tiny little helicopter. Right. And I'm like, I don't care. I put in an offer. I said, we're putting in an offer, a full price offer. I don't care. This place it's not going to last. He's like, no, probably won't. So we put in the offer like 2.5. And by the way, I'm crying. So my girl, my daughter, And same thing. She's the one that if it wasn't a good idea or it wasn't right,
Yeah,
she'd be
said,
the first one to be like, no,
no,
this is not okay. She's like, what can we sell? What can we do? Let's everyone put in our, right? It was kind of like, what can we do?
Okay.
Yeah. So Brian doesn't get the message for like 3 hours. And he goes, well, I guess you should put an offer on it. That's the text message he sends me. And I'm like,
already did.
Too late, buddy.
Yeah.
So I think there were like half a dozen offers or something like that. And ours wasn't even the most, ours wasn't even the best. We ended up having to pay more and go back and count. Yeah.
Oh, and but you got it.
We had to sweeten the deal.
Oh, like vegetables for life or what?
Like $25,000 more. And like a 30-day close, those kinds of.
Oh, like urgency with cash flow. Okay. But you did it. So it was all meant to be.
Yeah.
It was all meant to be your farm. So when you saw it for real in real life, did you immediately start like landscaping and figuring out, okay, like the chickens are going to go here and the cows are going to go, like what was in your mind when you saw all this land?
Like none of the above. I just knew. Because think about this, Allison, when you go from a place of real humility, right? Like when you sacrifice all of that for your family and you live below even when you are making more money and you're still living below your means, just to make sure that you do everything you can for your kids and, in your little family unit.
Yes.
When you live like that, so frugally and so humbly for so long, something like this is like, it's a little overwhelming and you don't even like, you're just so
grateful,
in shock and grateful and feeling so blessed that this is what we've worked our whole lives for. And you didn't even know it kind of thing, that you don't even have a plan.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like
no,
we just needed space. And in fact, in fact, the house, after about 2 or 3 weeks, my son finally said to us, he's like, hey guys, you do realize there's like, triple the space as what you're sitting in right now in this little like we were all sitting in this living room because that's what we knew. Like we didn't even move to the rest of the house for weeks.
Okay. You were taking it all in. It was a lot to take in. So, okay. Then at what point did you decide that you wanted to utilize the land and start to really, because I feel like it's a big deal, all the things that you've taken on.
Yep.
And so if you went from not even imagining the farm to now all the things that you are doing, I guess, what were the big beats within that journey?
So we inherited ducks.
Oh, you inherited. Okay.
So we had 5 ducks. So the first thing that ever happened and this is like the day we moved in, we were walking down by the pond and there are eggs by the pond because the ducks have laid eggs. Right. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Right. It's like, oh my gosh, I'd never experienced anything like that. I mean, I think I had a neighbor behind me with chickens that I could hear over the fence, but I didn't collect it. I didn't do that kind of thing, right? I didn't grow up that way. Neither did Brian. Brian came from California. He was a skateboarder, right? I mean, and we, that's just how it was. So that was cool. It was just so cool. There was a chicken coop already on the property as well. Like a chicken run in a coop, pretty secure and it was just like all set up. The very first thing we did, and I'm telling you, it wasn't long. It was maybe 3 weeks after the duck egg situation. We just jumped in with both feet and got and got chicks.
Okay.
And that was really what kind of started it. It's like, okay, chicks. Okay, awesome. So it wasn't until I realized that how different chickens are. A lot of people don't know this, but chicken eggs aren't just brown and white.
Right.
Okay. They're not. They're like
Green.
blue and green and pink and 75 shades of green. And wait, this one has speckles and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, like that was like nature's art to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So part of my past life is I'm a mixed media artist. Like that's one of the things that kept me sane when I had children and, and went back to work and stuff like that. I did mixed media art. Well, this was like farm art.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started getting a little, like, kind of obsessed with the chickens and the eggs and the feathers and the differences. And I was fascinated by the chicken genetics. Fascinated.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where that sort of started. And then one day Brian came home with cows, baby cows. Right?
He just showed up with a
we
baby cow?
literally went from chickens, ducks that we inherited to chickens to cows. There wasn't even any space really much in between. That's what happened. I mean, we had a pasture and we had a fence. I mean, why not? I guess was his thought.
Naturally.
Yeah.
What was Brian thinking? Like for milk or for butchering or
for meat?
For meat.
Yeah.
A meat cow. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like this is a theme between the two of you. Like you're putting offers in on houses. He's showing up with cows. Like this is the dynamic.
We just decide that I guess what's funny about it is, and maybe this is the survivalist in us. I don't know.
Yeah.
We just never, if we want to do something, we just do it.
Yeah, you guys trust each other implicitly.
We do, and we definitely trust each other. And I guess after that much time, I mean, how could you not?
There you go.
But yeah, and we really have, for the most part, been on the same page.
Right.
It's just been, the big livestock kind of he did, and the little kind of I did, and that was that. And then we were in the animal situation. But originally, Allison, here's the thing: it wasn't for everyone. It was just, we were doing it just for us, right? We still hadn't even gotten to the point of, oh my gosh, this could be a business. Oh my gosh, this could be a thing. We still weren't even there for some time.
Okay. So you had chickens, then you had cows. And at what point were you like, let's grow some veggies?
Nope, not for a while.
Oh,
like 2 whole years, really. So my first year here, when we got the chickens and stuff, and we moved in June. So it was pretty it wasn't late in the season, but it was kind of late in the season by the time I had my feet under me and thought, oh, I should be growing something, right? Because it's that time of year.
Right.
And I have a farm. I should grow something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just decided, so we bought a few tomatoes, right? Like we bought like 2 tomatoes and like 2 basil and like 2 peppers or something. I mean, it was just really just basic.
Okay. So then I guess at what point after the chickens and the cows and the starting to add some veg, what was the pivotal moment where you said, we could scale this?
Let's go back to the whole, the beautiful eggs and whatever. Yeah. Well, in order to self-sustain my new hobby of chicks, right? I needed to sell some of the eggs and I needed to sell some of the chicks. Right. Okay. That was my first foray into what was happening because I needed to be able to pay for my own personal hobby.
Habit. Oh,
okay. My habit. Yeah. I like that. Brian would like that word.
And then you also started to realize that there was a demand for it too.
And I did realize there was a demand, especially because my eggs they're really pretty. And
they are pretty.
It took me really 2 years to 2 seasons really to get into the beautiful eggs that I have, right? I started figuring it out pretty quickly, what to do, what to buy, and how to produce that myself. So that was pretty exciting. So in order to self-sustain my habit, I love that you call it that. Okay. I really needed to pay for it. I needed to sell some things and pay for it.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I was doing it. Sometimes I would do it just right in front of my house. Oh, and by the way, I have fruit trees. So I had some things that were already established that I didn't have to work very hard to do. Does that make sense? Like they were already mature, and things like that. I had peaches, pears, all of these things. Well, I had an overabundance of them, and I was still working quite a lot at this point, quite a few hours. And so I didn't have a lot of time to process, and I just had a lot, but again, I wanted to support my chicken habits. So so I had this little, in quotes, this little farm stand at the end of my driveway to sort of, and one day, the second year that I had it, one day I'm standing down there, it's early morning. It is quiet and lovely and peaceful, and you can hear the birds, and I can hear my roosters, and it's really awesome, And I look back up my really long 250 feet driveway, and I think this gravel and weeds situation is just really bad. It's really ugly. And what can I do about this? In my mind, it's not aesthetically pleasing, right?
Okay.
Not to me, and not to the people who would be coming here to, pick up pick up my chicks and my eggs and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just not. So I thought, wouldn't it be so cool if when they came to my farm stand and they looked up this driveway, because our house sits on the back, you can hardly see it, but you can see this very long driveway and this path getting, on the sides that were this gravel and weeds. What if I had sunflowers on one side and pretty pumpkins on the other side? What if I did that? This is what I'm thinking all alone with my coffee.
Right.
And, so of course I have to tell Brian, I'm like, this would be so awesome. And anytime I go, oh my God, I have this really great idea, it's like, oh no.
Oh dear. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He gets really scared.
Uh-huh.
So I say, but honey, what if we did this and brought compost in? And what if we planted these sunflowers and these pumpkins on the side? And he's like, wow, that sounds really ambitious, and that's a lot of compost that we don't quite have ourselves from, our chickens and stuff and our cows and stuff. I mean, we have a lot of it, but we don't have that much.
Right.
He says, but I mean, it's doable. We could do it. And I was like, okay. So put the little chickens the very next season. I put the little chickens out, that I was growing out, to eat the weeds down. And I'd move them every couple of days. Right.
Smart.
Yeah. Right. Why not make something else? Because Brian in his mind is like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I think, okay, I'm going to make the chickens do the work.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I put the chickens out. They eat, up a bunch of the weeds. So, we have to do, too much work or tilling or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I lay down the old hay from the previous year, and I just try to do everything as much as I can to help the boys, right?
Yeah.
Myself, so they don't just get overwhelmed.
Yes.
And we go and we get all this compost, and we ended up having to get more because, again, very ambitious. We needed more. So we had to keep going back and getting more and getting more. And then they kind of left me to my own devices. And we didn't have drip line in at this point yet in this section.
Right.
But I was like, I have to get something planted or it's not going to work. You guys, it's getting late. It took so long to do that.
Yeah.
And so I put down some pumpkins and some corn. And Brian, of course, by this point, he's done with his nurse practitioner license. He's working out of town because I swear the entire 30 years we've been together, we've worked away from each other. Right. So he's working out of town. Every other week he's coming home. So he calls me and he's like, how are your seeds doing? So I say, honey, I think it's going well, but I really feel that the only way that I can be successful is if I have drip line.
Yes. Yes.
So he and my son started really focusing on this drip line, and then I planted more and
then more, and then more.
Yeah. So the only thing I really did that year again, I did a couple of rows of corn just because it was that ornamental, pretty corn.
Okay.
And I had the seeds and I was like, all right, I'll just do this. But I did I did the corn. And then on the other side, I did the sunflowers, just like I said I was going to do. Allison, all I can tell you it was freaking magical.
Yeah.
When the first seedlings came up, I was like, holy shit, I am growing shit.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe this. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but that wasn't it. I don't know. I just didn't really have faith that if I planted this little seed that
it would grow.
Okay. Cause I don't know why. I just wasn't my experience.
So as things started to grow, literally, and as you kind of like look back on this notion that you could start to sell some of this stuff to your community, were the obstacles that you faced more in just your own belief that it was possible, or were there other like unforeseen obstacles that you look back on and you're like, yeah, how did we navigate that?
I feel like it was more me than anything, right? Because there's a lot of, here's what is cool about Idaho. Yes. Idaho is they love their farmers. They love agriculture. That's the heart of what Idaho really is. I realize that we're living in Boise, and it's growing and all these people are coming here and whatever. But at the end of the day, Idaho is an agricultural state. So the red tape and all the things that wasn't really my issue. I didn't have an issue with that, right? Because you can do cottage, there's cottage laws and all of those. So that wasn't really my issue. What ended up being my issue was my own, like at very first, I don't know if I can even grow anything. That was my first obstacle. Once I crossed that obstacle, right, then it was like, now how do I get people to know about me, about us, and about who we are? It's really more about that than anything at this point. It's not about red tape or anything like that. So it's not obstacles of the government. It's obstacles of the learning curve. Yeah. Obstacles of, can I handle like one of my animals being sick and dying? Right. Can I handle a gunshot? Because that's what happens when you process a cow. Yeah. There is a gunshot and that cow goes down. Right. Because they do it in the most humane way on your property, right? Yeah. And the first time that it doesn't matter how long I've done it. It doesn't matter that we've processed, we've had 3 cows processed, that none of that matters because I cry every time. Oh yeah. Right. And because it's just, now I really understand the whole farm, the full circle. Yeah. I really understand that and appreciate where your food comes from. Yeah. And and when the first time we ever ate the cow that we had processed, I don't pray a lot. I mean, not publicly, right? I say a lot of prayers, but you know what I mean? I mean, it's not like our family, we're not like super churchy or whatever as a general rule. But boy, did I ever thank the universe and whatever for that food, because, and I was extremely proud of it because it was really hard work. Absolutely. So I'm curious, you were talking about, I don't know if you want to share this with the growing Dean's List audience, but I'm curious your recommendations for chickens, because I think when I get my own chickens, I don't have them yet. Yep. I'm hoping to have them. I think I'm going to be creating my own feed concoction, right? Because I think that it's not, I don't know, the mixes don't seem to impress me with all the weird stuff that they add into them, right? Yeah. So if you were to advise on, make sure you include this, this, and this, or like whatever, if you want to have your magical color array, first of all, I think everybody should have chickens.
Yes.
I think everyone should have at least 3 to 4 chickens.
Yes.
I really believe that, especially now having had them. Chickens are so darling. Okay. They kind of smell sometimes, and they kind of, they can be a pain in the booty, but
right.
At the end of the day, they are darling. They are hysterical. They have personality. They talk to you sometimes, depending on the breed. So when I was breeding, I would always recommend chickens to people. And I would say, what are your chicken goals? So I would say, Allison, what are your chicken goals? Are your chicken goals to have eggs for your family? Are your chicken goals to have something that you can have around children? Or, have chickens that you know what I mean? Are your chicken goals, how many eggs do you want? Do you need? Do you expect? What can those are the kinds of things. So I would start there, right? Yeah. And I would start asking these questions because there's lots. You would be shocked. And again, this is why the genetics was so fascinating to me.
Lots of
because
chickens.
You'd be shocked at the variety of chickens, right? Yes. So I have so many different groups that include even little ornamental chickens. Do they lay eggs? Yes, they do. Are their eggs edible? Of course they are, but they're very tiny, right? Okay. So, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to know what your chicken goals are.
I want nice chickens. Yep. Nice chickens that aren't going to bite my legs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Because I went to McIntyre Farms and I love McIntyre Farms.
Yeah, me too.
But those chickens terrified me. They were definitely coming for my ankles and I did not wear.
That is an interesting breed. That's funny that you mentioned, because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we now have, I'm not doing the breeding right now to sell chicks because I'm taking a season off. Okay. But we still do eggs for production, meaning I sell a large volume of eggs to a couple of the local fruit stands here. So I do have specific production type, laying hens that I have out. I call my pasture birds, and they're the ones that people can see from the street, that are just out roaming around because they're pasture raised. But my very first year when it's not a contract, but when I was really supporting that fruit stand with my eggs, I was like, I need more chickens. Right. And they were selling off their breeding, or not their breeding, their laying, their layer hens for the season. And I got a big group of them from them. And I'm laughing because that breed is a production breed and they're very notorious for
pecking.
They're very verbal. Yes. They're very pecky. Yes. Right. And and when you have a lot of them in a big group, they do that.
Oh yeah. No, It was a lot of them. It was a lot of them. Yes. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm not so into.
So I wouldn't recommend them. I would recommend to you, especially if you're looking for something nice, something that lays for a long period of time, something that has a lot of personality. I 100% would recommend, and it seems a little boring, but I think everyone should have a barred rock in their, a barred rock. Everyone should have at least one barred rock.
Okay.
They're like black and white kind of striped.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fine.
So first of all, they're cute. They're fluffy. They have tons of personality. They're a heritage breed. They produce a lot. Their egg is a brown, often has a pink tint to it that's beautiful. They lay a lot of eggs per year, and they lay a lot of eggs over their lifetime, their lifespan. Nice. Okay. Because here's a fun fact. Kind of like women, you're literally born with a certain number of eggs, and that's all you get.
Yep. That's right.
That's all you get.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they have a life cycle.
Okay. And then if we want a chicken that's going to give us really crazy color eggs, is that the chicken or is it the feed?
It's definitely the chicken.
It's the chicken.
It's the chicken. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So you would want to talk to somebody like me.
Yes.
And I would, because what I do is I take, again, there's only ever 2 base colors of egg. Your eggs are only ever white or they're blue. Okay. Those are your base color. Okay. The reason that you get a brown egg or you get a green egg, right, is because it's a it's a cuticle. It's a coating over the egg
Okay.
that a specific chicken, breeds produce.
Okay.
And that cuticle is called a bloom. And that bloom often changes the coloring, or the speckling or things like that of the egg itself.
Okay.
So, so when you get, like I said, a white is brown and a blue mixed with a white, which has a brown sort of overlay, makes it green.
That's cool.
Right. So, and then some of the browns, because of the bloom,
Yeah.
right, are pink.
Yes.
Or purple.
All right, Lori.
Yeah.
So I'll just call you when I know I'm getting some chickens.
It's fascinating. But in fact, I was selling eggs the other day because I play indoor soccer. And a huge group of my clientele is at the indoor soccer center.
Okay.
I started with the people I was actually playing with, and I would bring in my sourdough, and I'd bring in my weekly orders from my people and then other people were like, "Oh, do you have extra? Oh, do you have more?" And so then I started making extra and getting extra and bringing it in on every Friday, and I sell out now.
I am not surprised, Lori.
And somebody there said, why, one of my little Hispanic community of soccer players is like, why are those eggs different colors? Fortunately, I speak Spanish. So I was explaining to him in Spanish, well,
that's normal.
It's normal, and it's different breeds of chickens that do that.
Right.
And I actually breed them so that I get this rainbow.
I get excited when I see rainbow eggs. Like
they're gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, not like Easter eggs, but like rainbow eggs. I'm totally with you.
Yeah,
okay. So
awesome.
Something else, because you don't have enough things that you're doing. You like to do more and more. You are expanding. And I think this is pretty cool too. Into the universe of events and some rentals. So what kind of sparked that, and how, I mean, I know that you're very much community driven, so I'm sure that there was a component of like talking to people and maybe hearing of a need and connecting things, but it's still a lot of work. So
it is
talk
a lot of work
about that.
So Brian and I love collecting antiques, and that's kind of how it started. And then my daughter, Marissa, my oldest daughter, got married in 2021.
Okay.
And, again, this is like right on the tail of COVID, kind of, still kind of there, kind of not, a wedding is really expensive.
Lord knows.
People don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do what we thought she deserved, right, and to do what we thought would be a magical experience, because this daughter is, first of all, she's my oldest, and secondly, we always tease and say she's the nicest of all of my children.
Okay.
Because she really is the salt of the earth, this particular daughter. I'm not that my other daughters are not nice. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying this particular daughter, if you asked anyone in the family, they'd say, oh, she'd give the shirt off her back, kind of thing. Right. So everybody, the sisters, and we all wanted to do something that was just magical for her.
Okay.
And, in order to do that, we had to do a lot of it ourselves.
Okay.
So I love dishes. I love china. So that's really what kind of sparked that. Was we did mismatched china at her, at her, for her wedding, and it was beautiful. But I had been collecting it and I needed to put it to use. So that's what we did. Same thing, furniture. We collect antique furniture. We think it's so beautiful. And, we get great deals on it. We love to go to auctions. And so a lot of the things that we have collected over time, we want to share with other people. Yeah. And so, and people wanted them too. They saw what we had done for Marissa's wedding and they're like, oh my gosh, kind of thing. So that's kind of how it started.
So you'll be doing, you'll be doing more weddings.
Like anything really. Anything.
Any kind of an event on your property.
Well, it doesn't even have to be on our property. So what we want and how it got going was a lot of times these places, they want you to use their things.
And you don't want to use their things because they're not that cool.
Their things are like not really your style.
Generic.
right? They're very basic and generic.
Yes.
Well, what we were doing is we were making it more of a unique experience. Yeah. And more. Yeah. So it's not huge or anything like that, but it's something that for me, and it's not just weddings, right? It's other events. So
Anyway,
I've supplied and, rented out things for baby showers. We did a booth for a gal at a horse show. We built a barn wall, which, by the way, we've used now several times, even for our own events.
Yeah.
But we did this barn wall. But eventually, we'd love to be able to do something small scale here, and use our rental stuff. But for now, what we're doing is just renting it out to people that are having events at other places.
Very brilliant.
Yeah,
extending it all out there. I want to talk about bird flu and stuff. But before we do that, I just want you to walk everyone through like a typical day, only because, now it's a lot bigger. So there's the animals, the gardens, the fruit, the nut trees. There's like so many things. You still have your chickens, although it's, we're taking a pause on certain things right now. So what does a day in the life look like on Hummingbird? And, maybe currently, what's bringing you the most joy from your land?
So this will be the third year for the driveway gardens.
Okay.
Last year remember I did the sunflowers and the pumpkins and a little bit of corn that first year.
Yep.
Last year was the second year, and I added zinnias and beans and peas. I added things that made sense,
Yes.
It was packed full. It was amazing. This year, if you can believe it, I've actually started my own stuff from seed indoors, which is
cool. Yes,
I never thought I could do. So that's exciting.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward to this year because the garden has expanded in the driveway. The fruit trees are producing, right? We've got a garden in the back. We actually we won a grant, a $500 grant, not huge, but perfect, to do fencing around the garden in the back.
Okay.
So that we can free range the breeding chickens as well as the pasture chickens more often.
Okay.
And they won't get into the garden. Okay. So that's really, we're still doing sourdough, and I often, because I am so busy and I am still working full time, I actually get sourdough from another gal most of the time because I love to support her. I want to support her, and I'm getting her bread over to my area of town by doing that. So it's awesome. That's good. But yeah, that's what's bringing me the most joy. But my morning starts, my alarm goes off at 4:30 every day.
Oh God.
4:30, even on the weekends.
Wow.
Because remember how I said I was a redhead? The sun, if that sun gets over the barn shop, from the east side of the house, before I get to a certain area of chores, it's like game over. Because I spontaneously combust in the sun. It's so hot.
Wow.
So I really do prefer to do, plus it's calm in the mornings also.
Yes.
And I work. So I have to be in front of my computer at a certain time, right? So there's many things that have to happen in the morning before I can actually start my corporate job.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to balance right now. And I work remotely, corporate job, and I'm also taking care of my new grandson at the same time. So we're tag teaming that, right? So I have to get chores done in the mornings. We've since added to the pasture coop an automatic door that lets those chickens out. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Building in some automations for yourself. Okay.
Building in some automations. We're also going to be doing the same thing in the back with the breeding, which is why we're taking a year off breeding.
Okay.
Because you have to have those roosters. They can't intermingle.
Okay.
Because the genetics then get all messed up.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because then instead of getting a green egg, you might get a not green egg. You might get a brown egg or another white egg or something boring that nobody wants, right?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
So,
okay.
Yeah, you have to sequester those roosters with those specific hens, and it's just a big process back there.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why we're taking a year off that. But
okay.
in doing that, we're also automating some things, building the fence for the garden, right? But every day, with no matter what, even though we've created efficiencies, you have to get up, you have to check water, you have to check feed for the animals. And in the winter, it is very, very hard because you have to make sure the water's not frozen, right? I try to put my eyes on my birds, especially in the winter or in the really hot summer. You really have to put your eyes on your birds all the time. It's kind of like my mom right now, who's aging. By the way, I'm the sandwich generation. So I've got my grandbaby and our aging parents.
Wow.
Which we're trying to manage. You have to put your eyes on them every day because in order to know if there's something wrong with them,
gotta know.
You
gotta
have
watch
to
them.
see them. You
Yeah.
have to look at them.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so there's that. Let's see, cows. The cows need fed. It's interesting because the cows, once the pasture starts, growing again, they're pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah,
you just
right.
have to make sure they have enough water. And the pig, for whatever crazy reason, they make their own spaces and dump their water. And I don't know. So she is a little more maintenance than the cows, if you can believe that. But for the most part, we just, give her a lot of scraps and water.
And you have turkeys now.
We do. We have turkeys. That's something that we did last year for the first time. We created what was called a Thanksgiving box. So everything that we did was most everything. I would say probably 80 to 90% of it in the Thanksgiving box was all done at our farm or a local to us farm,
right.
because we do a lot of bartering and stuff with others, but yeah.
And you're processing everything on your property.
We were processing. We have since decided now, since it was successful, the turkey, the Thanksgiving boxes, but because it is actually quite affordable to have a turkey processed. And it's not the most fun thing. Processing animals isn't that fun. It's just not. It's not as easy it's just not easy. And so, and Brian likes to say to me often, I'm glad we found that we can send the turkeys, and have somebody else process our turkeys for us next year, because he said, I'm actually a healer. I'm not that's not what I don't prefer to process the animals myself, because I'm a healer. So it is hard on him too.
Right.
Emotionally, I think sometimes it's difficult, especially, we try not to name the animals that we know are going to be processed, because it makes it even harder.
Yes. When you give something a name, it has you have a different relationship with it.
Yes.
Okay. So I think a hot topic right now, it's important for us to discuss, is around egg prices. You almost have a heart attack when you walk into the supermarket and you see the cost of eggs. So I want to talk a little bit about the challenges around bird flu, or what we're being told about bird flu, because I think you've got a lot to say about it, and just like how you're approaching this agricultural climate that we're in. And I think what you want people to be aware of, right? Because I do obviously encourage everyone to always support their local farms, right?
Yes.
Like as much as you can. If you're not doing it yourself, support those around you that are close to you that are doing it. But I feel like someone like you can shed some light and help people understand what's going on.
Yep. So it cracks me up when people are like, "Oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Bird flu isn't a thing." It's definitely a thing. And it's a thing in very specific areas, right? It's not like, oh, bird flu is everywhere. It's not like that.
Okay.
Bird flu is you're typically going to hear about it and find it in migratory areas, or areas where there are a lot of wild birds, right? So it's not like it can't be everywhere because there are wild birds everywhere, right? Don't get me wrong. But
Right.
again, it's like in migratory areas where it can be rampant.
Okay.
And,
That makes sense.
right. And so, our area has it. I mean, I don't know if, and a lot of people don't know this because for whatever reason, it's not highly publicized, or maybe I'm just living under a rock. And so I didn't see it. That could be too. Cause in my little, in my little farm, I'm kind of in my own little universe. I feel like sometimes, but out by the Lake Lowell area,
Yep.
a bunch of, I mean, it was like there were dead birds everywhere in that area. So we have to be very careful ourselves because we do get, because of our pond, we get wild geese, we get wild ducks, we get a lot of things that think, it's great to be here.
Right.
And so we have to be very careful. We haven't experienced it, knock on wood.
Right.
Here. We've experienced other things, but we haven't experienced that.
Okay.
But it's still definitely a thing. What happens when a bird gets bird flu and you report it, because you really should tell somebody, because especially if everybody's dying, you really have to let people know. You really should.
You want to isolate things.
You want to be responsible. You want to be a responsible animal owner, right? Or a responsible farmer.
Sure.
Typically they do cull the entire flock. If for me, it might not be a big deal because I have flocks in different spaces.
Okay.
I know that was an experience. Another farmer friend of mine recently, they experienced it. They're kind of out in towards Cuna, and they culled the entire set of chickens in one area. But they said, no, we won't in this other area because they're not together.
Got it.
Right. And so that's fortunate,
Ooh.
That's why I kind of am that's why I kind of like having my chickens in different areas of my property.
Sure.
Because I think if anything were to happen.
Contingency.
Yep. I really think that. It's kind of like everything in our lives. It's all about balance, right? It's all about diversifying and not putting all of your eggs in one basket.
What do you think people should be paying attention to right now? Because I think it is alarming to see the cost of things. Yeah. I have a friend that I think she just paid like $12.99 for like a dozen eggs.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Do you want to know my hot take on this? Here's my hot take. Bird flu is a thing. Yeah. There's no getting around that. But the problem that we're having right now, and the reason that people are experiencing this hike in prices or whatever is happening with production eggs, because that's what I call them. Think about it. It's a commercial. These are commercial farms typically that are supplying a lot of the eggs in our country, right? They're commercial farms.
Yep.
Unless you're going to a co-op or you're going to these places. But even then, a lot of them are more commercial, even though they're certified organic or they're whatever, they're still big operations, right?
Yeah.
It frustrates me as a small farmer, especially one that is producing eggs, right? Mm-hmm, it frustrates me as a small farmer that everybody's going crazy and that this is a situation. There's an egg situation because that our new USDA or Secretary of the Department of Agriculture is recommending to solution this situation with importing eggs from another country. I'm not okay with it. And the reason I'm not okay with it is because I, as a small farmer, I have over 200 chickens. And when I'm at my peak, have about 300, which is what I can legally have without having to register my farm, right?
Okay.
300 layers. That is what I can have for my farm scale.
Yeah.
I've never raised my prices. My eggs are still $6 a dozen. Now, small farms might be higher priced than stores. And I understand that typically at Costco, you can get your 5 dozen eggs and you have a large family and you got to do this, right? I understand because I used to be that person that had 4 mouths to, 4 children.
Right.
that needed the 5 dozen eggs, right? And that needed, I understand that. But at the same time, what is happening is there's this imbalance. And so now people think that we're having this situation of, oh my God, egg prices are so high. And no, you need to go find a local farmer and you need to get your eggs from a local farmer, right? Because first of all, we didn't raise our prices. Our prices are the same as they've always been.
How do you think the government should be inserting to help local farmers more?
Yep. The government should be speaking to the American public. They should be speaking to the American public about small farms, local communities, farm stands, local fruit and veggie stands. They should be promoting us.
Yeah.
Like when I can't tell you how enraged I was to see that she, as a farmer from Texas, allegedly, this person, this Secretary of Ag, she is promoting, or she's saying that they're going to import eggs from another country to lower egg costs. No, you need to be supporting us, and you need to be verbalizing this. They need to be out there promoting us, saying and actually saying to the American public, find a farmer, we are here, but we don't have marketing budgets. We don't supply to these large grocery stores. A lot of people don't realize that in the old days, right?
Yeah.
In the old days, and in war times and in tight times, like things that are happening like right now, that the government is the one who actually recommended victory gardens. They actually recommended, supporting your farmers.
Yeah.
And in fact, the previous administration by the previous administration, it was a collaboration with small farms and schools and other places like that to supply food to these schools and these other,
That's cool.
Yes, exactly. And they just cut it off. They just cut it off. Idaho wasn't one of the states that was doing it, but Montana was. And the reason people don't realize this, the reason that the previous administration put that into place was to, again, going back to what you and I were talking about, to diversify where food is coming from.
Yeah.
So that there is not a food supply issue like we're having right now. Why aren't they coming to us? Right? Why aren't they saying, hey,
where are the eggs?
You know what I mean? If they can let's put it this way. If they can put a message out there to small news people and broadcasters and podcasters, and you see where I'm going with this? If they can put a message out there or a call for those kinds of small business type in that arena, right?
Yeah.
In social media and news arena, journalists, then why can't they do the same thing with farms? Hey, we're having an egg shortage. Who can help us? Tell me where you are, who you are. Why can't they do that?
I got a lot of light bulbs going off in my brain right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm with you on that.
And those
Lori.
victory gardens, Allison, here's the thing. Those victory gardens that were back in they were actually called a war garden in the First World War. The second, they turned into like a Liberty Garden, and then the victory gardens that, we heard of. And then they kind of resurfaced in 2020 for obvious reasons, which is how I ended up in here at my farm, eventually. But those things came up for the same reason that literally in the last 2 weeks, now I feel like our conversation is now coming full circle. This is the whole point. Look at what's happening right now. We cannot trust that that the big production and the big commercial food chains are going to be able to provide for us. Look at what happened with COVID. That's very recent. Look at what's happening with the stock market. That's yesterday. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
know your neighbors. Know your neighbors.
So when I said I was going to, you know, buy a bigger piece of property, and I said that I was going to get back to my roots, it was because I didn't want to be in a position where I could not feed myself, my husband, and my family and my little unit, right? That's how it started. Yeah. Now I feel like so excited and so I feel so proud because I'm supporting my community also.
Yes.
It's such a proud thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I remember what it's like to be destitute.
That's a contrast.
Okay,
and now
you know what I mean?
You're giving it back, Lori. Mm-hmm. You're giving it back. I
want to give it back.
It's amazing.
It's so exciting. Even if I'm not making $1 million off it, that's not the point. And did you know that local farms, like I said, the Victory Gardens and all those things, farms in general weren't meant to be production initially. They were meant to feed their communities.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Small scale.
Yes. So now to diversify, we need production. You know, we need commercial, we need production. We do need them. They serve their place. Right. They have their place. Yeah. But we also need us. But we need those guys at the White House and those guys in our local government supporting us and promoting us.
Oh, good. Yes. Yes. Yes to all that.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about sustainability, and then we're going to do a quick fire, and then I have a couple other questions. But I think sustainability is a big focal point with how you think about how you're structuring the farm. I think it's just inherently part of your DNA almost with your antiquing passions and how you supply event. I mean, the whole thing, there's a lot of reduce, reuse, recycle. The loops are happening, right?
Yeah. It's like my Venn diagram, right, of my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for you, and also I think because it is kind of, we're in a state of, I like to call it defensive living.
Yeah.
How do you, or I guess, what are your thoughts on ensuring that you stay as eco-friendly as possible? Or are there any things that you're doing on the farm that are maybe unique, or just, things where you wonder if other people are doing them to reduce waste potentially or protect the environment? I think Big Little Farm is a great documentary to kind of showcase just how much things can kind of just help each other kind of, in a lot of ways. But you have to just understand that all those things are meant to work together symbiotically. Yes. But anyway, sustainability on the farm and how you feel like you can maintain it in our growing odd world that we live in.
There's so many directions I could go with this because I'm a big thrifter. I love thrifting. I love antiquing. I love all that stuff. But just from a basic perspective for people in general, you have to tailor everything to your own personal, your own personal lifestyle and your own personal, way of living, right? Everybody has their own way. And so for me, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I'm just going to use this as an example because this is just my life right now.
Sure.
What do you do with all that chicken poop? What am I doing with all the chicken poop? What am I doing? Right? That kind of stuff, you have to deal with it. It doesn't just go away. It doesn't just...
You use it.
Yeah. So shoveling the literal, poop is a thing. Okay. And then putting that in a space where it can turn into something that is valuable is a big thing. Right?
Yes. I love that.
It goes right back into our environment right here on the property. That's just one example.
Okay.
But other people can be doing the same thing. When we buy from Amazon, I can't sit here and tell you that I just I don't have vices, right? I'm not an all or nothing. So that's one thing that you'll know about me is that I hope that I can be relatable to the community because I'm not, oh my gosh, you have to do this or you're just like, I can't talk to you. Right. I'm not that kind of a farmer. Right. I don't only wear linen clothes. I mean, I'd love to, but and I do shop from Amazon. But the thing about that, when you are doing those kinds of things, you have to think about what is coming out of it. Right. It is especially like at Christmas and there's boxes and okay, what can you do with that stuff? What can you do with it? Don't put it back into the landfill. Be careful with what you're putting into the landfill. Be careful, which also makes you a more, conscientious consumer. Yes. Because you really need to pay attention to what you're buying, where you're buying it from and all of that stuff, because you don't want to be supporting and putting things back into the environment that just, that really just shouldn't be there. It's just a lot. So on a small scale, something that people can just do in their own little universe is, just separating out, their cardboards and try to use the recycling bin. Try to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Start small and then
start small. Yes.
Start small.
And then it kind of compounds. Yeah. Right.
That's really what I would say. That's how I started. I mean, when I was living at the little house, with the little Taft house, that's how we were. We had our little compost, we didn't do a lot with it, but we did it. And
then it just kind of becomes part of it becomes second nature for you.
It does become second nature. But I think the message that I would say is figure out what you can do for your lifestyle that makes sense, even if it takes a little bit of extra work.
Right.
But the most important reason to do it too is because, and I always think about this now, especially now that I'm a grandma, one of the reasons why we got the farm was of course to remind my kids where they came from and to like get back to our roots and to make sure that we, had food in case of crisis and, all of the things.
Absolutely.
But also to remind the future generations.
Yes.
Right. And to teach the future generations.
I love that.
Because, and it came full circle because he just, he's 9 months old. So the whole reason why I came here to remind my kids and teach their kids and do the things is now coming to fruition.
Yes.
Which is perfect timing because I figured out how to garden, up and down the driveway and do the things for my community, even on a very small scale.
Right.
And now I get to teach him because he's here all the time with me, you know, and we're talking about it. And I took him out to see the chickens yesterday and he's like just lighting up, and getting so excited. So for me, the most important thing is to teach these kids and these generations by example what you're doing. You can't just speak it. You can't just tweet it. You have to you have to do it by example. You have to do it and live it.
Yep.
And it's not easy all the time.
That's what makes it rewarding.
Freaking hard.
Right?
The
hardest things are the things that, are usually the things where we feel the most, I don't know, successful or, right? Like we've accomplished something and that's where the meaning lies in the hard things, right? We can do hard things.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to do a quick fire. It's the first thing that comes to mind. Some are a little harder than the others, but just first thing that comes to mind. Okay. All right, here we go. Early bird. I mean, you already answered this. You're an early bird. You're definitely an early bird.
But not by genetic makeup.
Okay. That's good to know. Coffee or tea?
Depends on my mood.
That's okay.
But I know. Usually coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon.
Favorite coffee?
My husband's.
Okay.
Whatever. A nice fresh cup of coffee with whipped cream on top and sprinkles on top. And
Amen
my creamer that he brings me in my mug choice of the day is my favorite.
I do like your mug shots of the day. Favorite color?
Depends on my mood, but yellow is my favorite, happiest color.
Yes.
And, but I love pink.
Oh, I love that.
I love it.
Yeah. Yellow sunny.
But Yellow Thursday is a thing. So
I love that Yellow Thursday. What was the first job you ever had?
Babysitting, of course, because I think everybody did in my generation. We were latchkey kids and then, but babysitting. And then I worked at a pizza. I learned how to toss pizza at a little tiny local pizza place.
I love that.
That was my first real job.
What's your favorite music to listen to during the day?
When I'm working, I listen to music with no words. So George Winston radio,
Okay.
right? Very mellow.
Uh-huh.
When I'm cleaning or out working on the farm, it's either 80s or dance pop radio. Cause but I love all kinds of music. I'm an
Okay.
equal opportunity music person.
I love it. What's the one phone app that you can't live without?
Instagram, because it just keeps me informed.
Okay.
But I used to like it more when it
I
was
feel you.
just
I feel you.
photos.
I feel you. Seriously, I'm with you. What's the one word? We overcomplicate everything. What's the one word you would use to describe your business journey?
Oh, evolving, of course.
I love that.
Yeah.
If you could have any entrepreneur as a mentor for a day, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, that one is so hard. Oh, yes, I know. What is his name? Mark Cuban.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just think he's so cool.
Okay. What is a book that has significantly influenced your mindset?
The Coddling of the American Mind.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Besides your own, what is your another favorite small business?
Gosh, there's so many, but I love Mixed Greens downtown. I think is fabulous. And bacon, because that's where my daughter Lexi works.
Oh, cute.
And yeah. And it's just the cutest, most awesome. And I run for bacon and butter. So any chance I get to promote bacon and butter, which I also sell here, at my farm. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I run and play soccer.
I love it.
Bacon.
I love it. If you could instantly acquire one new skill, what would it be?
Instantly playing the guitar.
Ooh, if you could time travel to any period in history, which era would you visit?
With Martin Luther King and when all of that, the civil rights movement, that's what I would go back to. I think it's because I'm an Aquarius and everything about just causes and fighting for your rights and just is a thing for me. Like, it's just a big deal to me.
Okay. If you weren't doing the farm and the corporate job, what else might you be doing?
This is funny that you just asked me this. I really think I would get into politics.
Oh, I like that. I can see you in politics.
It's been sitting here for a really long time.
I would vote for you, Lori.
And people have told me they don't know why I'm not in politics. And I'm like,
Time will tell.
Yeah. Time will tell.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. I ask this to everybody. What does wellness mean to you, Lori?
Wellness means being in a place of peace. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
And I mean mind, body, spirit.
Yes.
Like mind, body, spirit.
Okay. And what are your daily non-negotiables as it relates to maintaining your own wellness? So like if you wake up and you don't do, it could be one thing, it could be 15, I don't know, whatever. It could be a bunch of things. But if you don't do those things, you don't necessarily feel as well as you maybe could if you did do them.
This one's going to sound kind of crazy, but one for sure, because it's the first thing that I try to do every day is make my bed. I don't know. Yeah, I know it seems like kind of weird, but it really just, I don't know, make my bed sets the tone. Another is to have a little tiny bit of quiet time for myself. Whether that's my afternoon walkabout with the chickens or in the garden or whatever. Or just quiet time, coffee, 30, whatever. Yeah. And then my last one is bodies are made to move. Oh, yeah. Your body is made to move. It's very hard working in front of a computer all day long. Amen. Because we forget to get up and move around. Yes. But when people are having pain, it's usually because they're not moving enough. Yes. Yes. So when I don't get enough movement, especially in the winter, it's okay. Yeah. All right. I want to look ahead to the next 5 years for Hummingbird Rancho. Given that you really are constantly innovating, I think. But are there any specific projects, goals that you're really excited about for the farm? Yes. We're building a little property, a little piece of a little casita, a little house on our property for my mom.
Cute.
just right out on the property.
Yeah.
And kind of in that same space, like in the same area, we're doing, and also attached to our house, we're doing a commercial kitchen.
Cool.
And then we're doing a more permanent farm stand. So those are the two things that we want to do in future that are kind of a big deal for us.
Yeah.
And building my mom's house was kind of like the, kick you, to kind of get us, kind of kick in the pants that got us going. But I would like to do that because I want people to be able to, several things. I want to be able to get some of my products out to more people, like at the co-op and things like that. And there are some things that I can only sell directly myself.
Got it.
For that purpose. So I would like to have a commercial kitchen. Plus it is way easier to do things in a space that's not your own. It's just better. I just would like to have that situation. And then the farm stand, I want people to be able to come and get things on their own.
Right.
Anytime they want,
yes.
Or any day they need to. We have a little refrigerator that has eggs and stuff, but I have more to offer than just that, especially when the weather's nicer. So I want to be able to do that. But I also, with that little farm stand, I kind of want to create community. Like I want to create a little, people want to come here. They want to see kind of what's going on and they want to, kind of have a little experience. Right?
I love that.
So that's what that's my ultimate goal is to have like an experience.
I want that experience. So sign me up. I'll take the experience.
They can see the chickens. They can see the cows.
I like it. I think it's great.
Pick the flowers, whatever.
Yeah. It's beautiful. What advice would you give to another entrepreneur? It could be a farmer or not, but just someone that is starting something new. Bonus points if it's something sustainable or farm oriented, but not necessarily.
I would say, first of all, do your research, right? Obviously do your research. Cause I think people, when they want to do something, they don't know where to start, right? They don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. And I think if you do a little more research on the front end, it creates less work on the back end, kind of like parenting. I always say the same thing about parenting. I always feel like, I worked really, really hard in the beginning because I didn't want to have to work so hard at the, at the end and that did prove to be like true. But that's what I would say. I think with me, I could have done a little more research in some areas.
Okay.
And I think things I wouldn't, sometimes you have to learn things the hard way. And I did have to do that a couple of times. And
that's okay too.
I just think, if I would have known that thing or, whatever, I think I would have done a little bit better. It wouldn't have been so difficult or I wouldn't have had to start over or, things like that.
Yeah.
And invest in, I would say, invest in your tools. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're a farmer. It doesn't matter if you're just a gardener. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what you're doing. Yeah, whatever it is. There are certain tools that you need that you have to get good. You have to get the good stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would say pick those things and then, make sure that you get whatever that thing is to get the good one.
I love it. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about, Lori?
I don't think so. I mean, basically, I just wanted to kind of give the full vision of we started the place because we wanted to get back to our roots.
Yep.
And, I wanted to do it for my grandson. And in the case that we needed to take care of our parents, and it's, that has come to like those things are happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time. And I was meant to be here for those reasons. Cause I think a lot of things are still coming up and are going to happen. So yeah.
Yes.
But other than that, I think we talked about pretty much everything. I'm very passionate about the government and kind of promoting us though. I would like that to be a thing.
We need to figure that out for sure. How can people find you on social media?
They can find me. Yep. They can find me Hummingbird Rancho with an O because I speak Spanish. So it's Rancho. Yep. Hummingbird Rancho on Facebook and also on Instagram.
Fantastic. Yep. Lori, this was very enlightening. You've planted so many literal seeds in my brain. Figurative, literal, all the things. Thank you for being on the Dean's List.
Thank you for having me.
You had fun and it was good. Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I guess we'll see you on the farm.
Okay. Thanks. We'll see each other soon.
Yeah. And thank you all for tuning into this episode of The Dean's List. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to stay updated and follow us on Instagram at official_Dean's List and YouTube at It's Official Dean's List. I'm your host, Allison Dean. Until next time.